This has to be the most L week in AEW history. They set things up very well after Full Gear, and like at the start of 2023, with all of those feuds, but they don't pay it off. They don't progress it at all. But before I'm going to talk about that, please like the video. Apparently I have to tell people to like the video now, early on, so you'll actually like it. So yeah, press that like button for my ego. So storyline progression, going into Revolution, believe it or not, is worse than Full Gear. In Full Gear, everything was set. The tournament for contention, Jungle Boy against Luchasaurus, Elite versus Death Triangle, not very much. Cargill versus Rose, unironically, had a good build. That was funny, but the match ended up being shit, since the monster was destroyed by Jade in like 8 minutes, and she hasn't showed up since. BCC versus JAS had a messy but a pretty entertaining feud, with the dynamic of Sammy Guevara betraying Chris Jericho. Saraya and Brit, not very much. That was maybe one of the worst. Confusing who was like the heel or the face, leading to actually them turning her heel. Samoa Joe, Wardlow, and Hobbs was pretty much just Hobbs being inserted there for no reason. Joe and Wardlow, I thought was over. It should have been over. I thought they were trying to catapult Wardlow higher up in the card, but they bring him back to the TNT title, which, come on, it's over. But they do heat it up in this show, so I'm gonna talk about that later. Sting and Darby against Jarrett and Lethal, not much substance. Hater versus Storm was mainly there for the match quality. Acclaimed against Swerve and Our Glory was stretched out for too long. The feud and the match was bad at this point. In like the old WWE games, like feuds are rated by thumbs up and thumbs down, and this was going thumbs down for me. While MJF versus Jon Moxley, best built feud. MJF wasn't overexposed yet. We had teases of William Regal turning heel. And yeah, William Regal really helped with that storyline. That we don't get for the one against Danielson. And now, for the build of Revolution. MJF versus Danielson, I think, was built okay. All of Danielson's matches, except maybe one, the one against Thatcher. Those 4 matches hit, with MJF just emptying out his coffers. Kind of comedic, but it didn't get as serious as it was at the start, when MJF like attacked Regal. I think it would have really helped if Regal was betrayed maybe like at this part of the feud, before he had to leave, but that can't be helped. Like the one attack tonight wasn't supposed to be CD. That was supposed to be William Regal. They should have fucking kept him. They should have tried, since he was integral to that storyline. The build after Danielson's matches was just MJF trashing on him. And he does so tonight again, but it's placed too late in the feud. I like the added wrinkle that heats up the feud just a little bit, of like hammering it in that MJF is scared. MJF is willing to pay all that money just to get one over on Danielson. He can't bear the thought of not being called the best even if he's the champion. So for this feud, I'm giving it like a B+. Like it was supposed to be a B, but this segment tonight that featured the wrong person, should have been William Regal, it goes up to a B+. It could go up higher if like we just had Danielson talk. But yeah, this is like the best built feud so far going into Revolution. And they have 2 more weeks to build it. The standards go higher the closer we get to the pay-per-view. So the score is more likely to drop if it doesn't deliver. So yeah, next feud is Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page. This feud was born out of like a real thing, and then they made it about Hangman Page's softness, which I think at the start was a great thing, but character development needs to happen. As much as we don't like to admit, the majority admire strong characters, and if Hangman like never gets over himself, even if that happens in real life, like this isn't real life. It's pro wrestling. Like the Hangman character needs to change. He needs to get like stronger, a lot more sure of himself. He needs to stop being a pussy, is what I'm saying. The feud has been slowly building to that. I like the match where Mox beat Page, but I think that's too much. For like this feud, it should have been Page beat Mox, and then we get the next one on Revolution. Like that whole thing where like they did push-ups and like the snow angels, that should have been like a 1v1 talking segment. As good as that match was, that did not need to happen. With that inconclusive finish and Moxley going like up 2-1. It's like they blew off the feud too early. And like they didn't follow the rule of threes. And Mox is just like so lackadaisical. In his promos, in the ring, it's like he's just cruising. Like even when he was champion, his matches just plodded. And when he lost the title, his promos went the same way. And tonight, I think they made it worse by adding in the Dark Order, who should have been added here much earlier. But instead we get Moxley versus Dark Order member Evil Uno 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. Like we should have been getting trios matches between them and Dark Order, BCC and Dark Order. Different combinations of that. Silver versus Claudio, even if it's just on Rampage. Not just Hangman and Mox like every week. This should have been like a feud war. It's too little too late to add in the Dark Order. If you wanted to, the max was last week. And then they have Hangman struggle against Kip Sabian in the death spot of the show, like where the women's matches are usually placed. This feud, like Hangman's title reign, has been mishandled so much. Dark Order should have come in earlier. We should not have had that third match. More promos would have been nice. An actual heel turn would have been nice from anyone. Or maybe teases of Hangman Page's character development. Like if by Revolution, after he wins against Mox, if Jungle Boy gets more character development than your main protagonist for the last 4 years, that would suck. What are you doing with Hangman Tony Khan? People are actually comparing him and Logan Paul now that he's so poorly handled. I don't know, a D for this one, especially with what happens tonight. So yeah. As for the TNT title, I thought the feud was over. I thought Wardlow was going to be set up to be moved up to face off against MJF after MJF beats Danielson. I thought Joe shaving off Wardlow's hair was a favor, since man buns suck. The three-way match with Hobbs just being plugged in there was okay, but not that good. The match where Joe won was a bit better, but still, this was a bad pairing for me. I think Joe's feud against Darby was so much better, like 10 times better, than what Joe and Wardlow could ever achieve. But here we go again. They spoiled the highs of Joe's win against Darby to be put in a feud against Wardlow again. And yeah, they managed to heat it up tonight. Wardlow, even though this not being like the best promo, did pretty well. But for me, this feud has a ceiling already. And final evaluation will be saved until after the match at the pay-per-view. But yeah, would have rather had Joe hold that belt even longer, face off against someone else, have incredible promo segments. But all signs point towards Wardlow winning it back, so this looks to disappoint. But I do like the depth with like Wardlow's dad, so maybe a C for this one. Next is for the Tag Team Championships. Acclaim started in like a holdover feud with the TNA boys, who they face off tonight, but they're well past them. So that's going to be one of my biggest criticisms later on when I critique the matches. And then they continue their feud with the Guns, after the Guns beat FTR in a fluke, and then like embarrass them on live TV. The feud has been pretty dramatic. It's been okay. I think the match with the Ass Boys winning, I think it's a bit underrated. It's being overly hated because of the actual result and how people just blame the Elite for everything that's wrong with the tag division. But for me, I mean, I don't believe that FTR are necessarily leaving. I think the table is being set. Like, the Ass Boys are being served on a platter for FTR to beat. Like, there is a casino battle royal that obviously FTR will win. It's an unnecessary turn to have two battle royals decide who the next two opponents are going to be. Since in this show, Acclaimed evoke their rematch clause, which is another betrayal of like AEW's values. From the start, they were about the ranking system and no rematch clauses, and now rematch clause. This is shit. It should have been just FTR against Ass Boys. But I guess to get a better match, you put in the Acclaimed with FTR and then maybe Aussie Open. 2 babyface teams, 2 heel teams. It's gonna be fun all around. As long as the match is given time. Like, just not a 10-minute shit show. But yeah, 2 battle royals with different stipulations in 2 straight weeks of Dynamite. In the last 2 weeks, to the build to Revolution, is excessive. For me, it should be just 1 tag team battle royal and then just have FTR declare that they're gonna go for the belts. Since they were triple champions for most of last year, I think that's a pretty good case to get you in the title match. Plus, you were screwed by the Guns, so that's an even bigger reason for them to be in the match. And then this 4th team is just going to be cannon fodder. They have no chance of winning and they're just there to elevate the match. So yeah, I'm kind of liking the build for the tag team one. They do nothing in this Dynamite, and like a nothing promo on Rampage. The Guns can only cut good promos against their dad. So that's why even if I enjoyed this feud, I'm gonna dock it some points. B or something? Yeah, when FTR come back, I can't wait for the reactions. That's gonna elevate the feud for me, so yeah. Next we have the Women's Championship, which is intertwined with Saraya and Toni Storm, and Ruby and Shida, and like the big women's division feud that was set up for me really well. But like the week after, they just dropped the ball. They don't get more members. They don't set up for like an invasion storyline. They don't bring in Athena. They don't bring in Mercedes. This was fucking terrible. This has like the worst progression out of all of the feuds. Instead, it's just spray paint. And the main event wasn't like all that bad, but it didn't do anything for anyone. It tried to have like the Ruby being torn apart to 2 sides, but it doesn't establish the sides soon enough. And it's not the crisis level event that I wanted, so yeah. Poor feud here. F. And then the women's champion is just Ruby, winning the match, so that sets her up against Jamie Hayter. So yeah, this drags down Jamie as well, but hopefully the match will be good. Still though, F. So after this, let's just get this out of the way. Jade Cargill's feud is a whole load of nothing. They just ended it, so I don't know who Jade's gonna face at the pay-per-view. Just like have her out of the pay-per-view. That'll bring down the score less. NA for the TBS title. And next for the Elite, who are the most overly hated team in the world, who had a match that crossed my limit when it comes to Elite matches. Like, I love these guys. They're the reason why I started watching New Japan. They're the reason why I'm into AEW. But I don't think the best of 7 helped them at all, like, gain any fan support. I think the trios titles are beneath them, and beneath who they're feuding with. I think it's just right for Top Flight. So I would have rather had Top Flight win this. Or like just kept it on Death Triangle. I enjoyed the matches, but I would have enjoyed them more if we maybe had like just a best of 3. First match, the Punk references, and then Escalera de la Muerte. Kenny should be in singles, as I stated in an old review, like an early 2000s Shawn Michaels, where he would win big matches, but then fail to get the big titles. Or hell, you can even have him win the TNT title or like defend the New Japan US title. Like, you have the ROH Trios titles. Just merge them with this one. Since the Trios division, having 3 members per team, kind of eats at rosters. It's that or having just 3 teams facing each other off, rotating with the belts. But when it comes to the feud itself, like the main feud going into Revolution, it's too late. You have 2 more weeks to build. And yeah, this one was just a major failure all throughout. They can bring it back up to like maybe a B at the end of the 2 weeks, but this could have been more. If we even had like 3 weeks, 4 would be better. Of just them appearing on Dynamite, this would have been a better feud. Maybe a D for now, since there's still potential. Jungle Boy versus Christian, I think it's too late to bring in Christian. The feud has been cooled off too much, and I think was paid off really well at Full Gear, and I think should have happened after the pay-per-view. I actually think like maybe a Jungle Boy versus Samoa Joe would have been nice, with Christian costing Jungle Boy the belt. It's too late to bring him in now. I'm going for a D. Same with the Elite. As for the Firm, as well as Hook, this doesn't have to be paid off now. The mid feud is going to be at Revolution, hopefully with Hook losing, so can't score this. But it's a lower card feud, so yeah. And finally, that leads up to the first match, Orange Cassidy against Jay Lethal, where I think it's time for Orange to lose. Or maybe one more pay-per-view cycle. Or you know what, now that I think about it, I don't think Orange is losing. I think he beats Lethal and then gets back the Golden Globe for Paul Walter Hauser. By the way, Blackbird's amazing. Go watch it. Unimportant feud, but the resolution of Hauser getting back his Golden Globe trophy would be cool to see for this feud. So yeah, let's get started with the actual show. First match is the 8-man tag, where the former tag champs backtrack on a feud, and instead of like aggressively chasing the guns, they're in this match against Jeff Jarrett, who you can't boo right now since he lost his father. But Max Caster manages to do a good job, pay respect while shitting on Jeff. I didn't think you could like ever do this. And as a fellow nepotism baby, I'm offended by Max Caster. So yeah, the first match is always important. Like, this is where they usually put their second biggest match of the card. Then they put their biggest match in the middle of the show. I think the BCC match should have been here instead. Or hell, maybe the women's match, like, given proper time and booking. Because an 8-man tag, I don't think is gonna net you a large watcher base at the start. Like, people just drop out completely upon seeing such an unimportant match. Like, this felt like this should have been on Rampage. As much as I like Blackbird and Paul Walter Hauser, I don't think, like, since that feud was presented on Rampage first, I don't think it being brought to Dynamite is the right thing to do. As for the match itself, it was pretty uneventful. There was too much downtime. I had fun with, like, the Jarrett taunts, but it's the same every week. They need to change it up. It follows the usual structure just like every match in the card tonight. Match was pretty traditional for the first half, and slow and a bit boring. Nothing much happened. They needed more Orange Cassidy there, who was like a background character in the match. And Satnam Singh has been in the roster for about a year now, going to a year. He's gotten better, but they played out the giant gimmick too much already. Like, the entire time he was in AEW, that was his only thing. Tall dude, face-to-faces, and not much else. Again, this was supposed to be on Rampage, in my opinion. Also, what is it about AEW's camera crew that they love exposing the wrestlers doing the sleight of hand? They clearly show that the Golden Globe shot was faked. They showed Mox blading on TV. Like, why? Aren't you supposed to be like a trained production team? Like, what's going on with this cinematography? Spot of the match is this overly prolonged Scissor Me Timbers, where it rotates from Bowens to Cassidy to Daddy Ass, and then finally to Anthony Bowens again. And also, I like that Daddy Ass is the only one who can hurt Satnam because of the sizes thing. But yeah, the only problem with this, like, pretty fun spot is that maybe you can have a thing where, like, different people, like whoever they're with in trios or in quadros, have them do the Scissor Me Timbers. Or like have a rotation, have a lineup, have it like a conga line. That would have been funny and it would have garnered great reactions. But it would have been nice to see anyone do it aside from Anthony Bowens again. Like, this would have been perfect for Orange Cassidy. But yeah, the Scissor Me Timbers unexpectedly ends the match. They pin Sanjay Dutt, who's a glass cannon, for the win. TV undercard. And yeah, the Ass Boys make appearances, but not very substantial. They're driven away. And the post-match is a 4-way scissor party, which was okay. But overall, the match didn't open the show well, unlike the past 5 Dynamites. So after this is the Passion of the Danielson promo. So it's a promo from post-match last week. It starts the conversation, like the hammering in that MJF is scared of Danielson. Very simple promo, straight to the point, said with Danielson's usual intensity. But it would be fun to have him say like more than just this every week. It suits his character as like this serious wrestler dude, but talk about something different, like psychoanalyze MJF or something. I mean, this would have been nice and excusable last week after the match itself, but here it was just too shallow. But yeah, nice visual of Danielson's face. The only thing missing was the Shroud of Turin, and he would have been Jesus Christ. So yeah, great promo, just not much in it. So after this is Jon Moxley and Claudio versus Rouge and Perro Peligroso. I hate that name. Why not just Preston Vance? Why come up with this Perro Peligroso thing? Perro has been used as an insult in wrestling since like ever. So why use it here? Preston Vance would have been just fine. And Preston Vance is pretty cool. Like in this match, he showed out. Everyone actually. But of course, mostly Claudio. Match starts with an outside brawl where like they spent like about 4 to 5 minutes outside in the crowd brawling. I mean, like, the brawling was basic, but it's on TV, so who cares about that? They have a fun brawl around the ringside area, and then isn't this the sort of thing that would pump up a crowd? They should have opened the show, honestly, and might have contributed to, like, setting the tone of the entire show, even if this did come out second. The crowd, too, was pretty subdued. I don't know if the show was just bad, which it was, as a whole, or that the Laredo crowd is just submissive and like shy and stuff. There's less of an arrogance there compared to like more northern crowds. But yeah, this was a fun way to give the crowd its money's worth. It's a bit slow to start, but when the bell is rung, I mean, it gets a bit more interesting. So the story of the match is Claudio gets taken out early and then LFI just destroy the shit out of Mox. We have some terrible spots like this. The catapult move on the guardrail that Rouge kind of like sluggishly sells. This looked terrible. Moxley gets passioned of the Mox and they beat the shit out of him. It's odd that Rouge backs away from using the cord this time since there's no DQ. But they do use weapons like this chain. But then we get one of the biggest betrayals in company history. And it's a betrayal of their values. Because AEW was found as an alternative. I said this in my least watched short ever. But seriously, you go on about saying that you're going to do things right, you're going to be better wrestling than in the North. Well, one of the things that you said that you would improve is how people watch TV backstage. And then you give us this shit with Hangman Page. You're protagonist of the company since the start. Watching TV like this. Like not a normal human being. Like they had it right when Britt Baker watched the TV correctly, but why do you do this? And then they remove the ranking system, which actually worked by the way, but now you have fucking rematch clauses now, as revealed by the Acclaimed. Like stop backtracking in all of the things that you promised. AEW slowly losing its identity, and it's getting worse for it. And it's not only that, we get fucking Tony Khan doing stupid shit like this that's gonna alienate his talent. They're eventually gonna want to leave. It's shit like this that makes Kenny Omega want to leave and join New Japan. Like exclusively. It's this shit that'll get the Young Bucks signed to the WWE and them being used marginally in the show. This is the shit that's gonna turn MJF into Miz 2.0, into a good intercontinental or mid-card champion because that's where he belongs, according to those fans. This is the shit that lost you William Regal. It's a shit show, man, and yeah, I just got sidetracked. Let's get back to the match. Top spot of the match candidate is a spear through the ropes by Preston Vance. I think I'll name this number 3. This was executed pretty well, looked good. So after LFI just like destroy the shit out of Mox, Claudio comes back in and then just like steals the show. If you gotta keep anyone, if you're gonna push anyone to the top, that's not Ring of Honor. And I think man should drop the Ring of Honor Championship. I got so much opinions, but this guy should be in the main show. He signed up to be in AEW and not to be in Ring of Honor. They need to put that title on someone else. And they need to do right by Claudio by pushing him. By giving him a chance to shine on the main AEW roster. Because guy single-handedly put this match back on track. Claudio is like 40 plus years old. He should be in the main show. The sheer talent you have with that guy. I think he's great, but I don't think he himself can carry Ring of Honor. If you want people to sub to that streaming service, maybe have someone like Mox do it, or have someone younger or something. Or JAS. Stick JAS there. So yeah, another top spot in the match candidate is Claudio doing a European uppercut to Preston Vance, who's doing an outside dive. Really good move. The finish, like, comes out a bit out of nowhere. We have John Moxley putting Preston Vance in a Jujikatami with a chain. This gets him to tap out. BCC win. It just comes out of nowhere a bit. But that was a cool ending. I like the use of the chain with the Jujikatami. And so yeah, top 3 spots of the match. I think I'm going to give number 3 to the finish. That looks sick, especially when Mox and Preston are bleeding. Number 2 is the uppercut to an outside diving Preston Vance. Preston Vance is in a lot of this. I wouldn't call this like a star-making performance, but it's a performance that establishes him more. Let's say that. LFI managed to stand their ground and look strong against BCC in defeat. And number 1 spot is Preston Vance doing the spear to the outside. Or like the spear to the guy on the apron going outside. So yeah, this match was pretty good. It was like TV main event, pay-per-view undercard. It's not epic enough to get a higher score. It didn't have like this climax sequence that gets you off your feet, but it's okay. It's like a serviceable, fun match that you can definitely have main eventing a show. Having this open the show would have netted you more viewers, maybe like 1 million to start, but then of course it like decreases over time. And this would be good like on the undercard of a pay-per-view. And then like backstage, Kip Sabian and the Butcher and the Blade beat up Hangman Page, which I think he kind of deserves because he watched TV incorrectly. So yeah, after this is the Wardlow promo where, you know what, Wardlow has so much better hair now. I think Joe did him a favor. But apparently there's more story to it than that. It's about Wardlow's father who died of cancer and how his hair is important since when you get chemotherapy, you lose your hair. So Wardlow wants to like distance himself from that. So he grew out his hair, he had a beard, and he had that silly man bun, which I think everyone can agree with me that it's a terrible haircut. He delivered it with as much intensity and emotion as he could. He can still get better, but it's the best promo that he's cut ever. It's better than the internet promo. Just work on it a little more. And plus the derpy faces. I love this. This is like segment of the night so far. And then after this is Josh Woods versus Mark Briscoe. So I expected Mark Briscoe to show up in AEW, of course, but not this soon. I thought he was going to have like a month off, but never has he been more over than he is now. He has like public sympathy as well as the FTR rub. So this was the best time to actually like feature him on TV. Match is man versus faction, so there's a lot of cheating, a lot of distractions from Nice and Daivari. That was masked very well by Mark Sterling, who's a gem of a manager. They're actually not seen cheating. So then we get the return of the Lucha Bros for some reason. I thought they were still with Pac. I thought like they were like heelish now, but yeah, I guess we have the Lucha Bros back. I think it would have been better to like just have this after that and then have this be another team and not the Lucha Bros. Since what about Pac? It would have been a bigger impact if this happened after the match. But having this many distractions and having Josh Woods like lose in the end would have buried him a bit. But I don't think that would have done much since the crowd already don't give much of a shit about him. But he was really good in this match. Man has the look and the in-ring, not so the talking. Top spot of the match is a corkscrew suplex from the apron to the outside. This was sick. We have him mock Mark Briscoe, which is like nice initiative. Reach for this guy Mark. And he pretty much showed us like his vast arsenal. He executed the moves properly, but the crowd just didn't care. But he's someone we can look at to like replace the people who will be leaving when their contracts expire. Talented guy, just not given the opportunities yet. And as for Mark Briscoe, Mark could do nothing wrong. Crowd just ate up whatever he did. And he did enough. Like he could have not done this outside dive with a chair, but he's a high effort guy. So number 2 spot of the match. Climax of the match is the hunt for the J-Driller that turned into like an evenly matched counterfest. But then Mark wins out, Death Valley Driver, Froggy Bow for the win. People aren't giving this the love it deserves. This was really good. It's like TV main event, pay-per-view undercard. And I think this is just below the last match. Fun showcase for Josh Woods, and it builds Mark Briscoe up for better things. So yeah, after this is the Adam Cole promo. So we've had like 3 to 4 promos now with Adam Cole teasing his return, like for weeks, ever since the LA show. I don't know if he's really medically cleared or if there's just no room for him in the program, but I say just like stop doing this shit. I think that if you weren't going to feature him within 2 weeks of teasing the return, or like actually announcing the return in the LA show, you should have just like kept him in the back, forget it all happened, and then have like a second less impactful but like still awesome TV moment when he finally returns for real. Because now it just looks like you want to pop a rating, and it looks like that there's just no room for him in like the current 3 hours of programming. Okay, so after this is the undisputed best part of the night, and it's MJF's entrance. While the actual segment is really good in itself, this one that wasn't included in the TV stream and was just showed on Fight, just like stole the show for me. Like this was next level shit, I'm gonna tell you why. So people abroad or people with VPNs pay for Fight, $7. We have AEW Plus. Since we don't have it in our TVs, thankfully, I love watching it on Fight, except when Fight doesn't work. But in Fight, we don't get commercial breaks. And in this one, we actually are showed what MJF does in his entrance. So I don't exactly remember the last time where he was like entering the ring on a commercial break. Like I think that's kind of blasphemy. This should have been on TV. But like he does so much shit to rile up the crowd, especially this Laredo crowd. I think this is the crowd he hates the most. He does so much to turn their cheers into boos. Because I got a list here. I got a list! And so MJF gets kissed by this girl, and MJF flips off her boyfriend who's right beside him, who has been like ragging on him. Boyfriend is booing a lot, but the girl, like, just like legendary moment. Very, very made for TV, but it wasn't on TV, sad. This girl just like set this up perfectly for MJF to take advantage of. And then next thing on the list is dude takes the dude's phone and then throws it to the floor. He then pours someone's beer all over him. He slaps the phone out of another guy's hand. He pours popcorn on this one fat kid. And then he says that all of the kids in Laredo should have been aborted. Yeah, this is why I don't think MJF should go to the WWE. This is just like fucking gold that he's doing here. This is something you'll do in house shows, but in an actual televised show. People paid their good money for this. I think it's more expensive than house shows. But you have a dude destroying phones, like disposing like expensive ass popcorn, and just like having the abortion line. You'll never have that again if he was in Connecticut. In the WWE. His actual promo is not as deep cutting as it should be right now. Dude should be taking shots at Danielson's family and stuff, but the whole feud is centered around MJF's insecurities. I think they're not going too deep with Danielson and MJF yet, and I think it's kind of too late. There's 2 more shows and maybe have face-to-faces now. Like, I don't think Danielson's character allows him to be like mentally manipulated by MJF. I think Danielson is like a focused dude, so it would really take something to like heat this feud up even more. And I don't think that it's Christopher Daniels, because this entire feud has been MJF just splashing out the cash, paying everyone, like literally throwing money at his problems to not have to face Danielson. And I actually think that his refusal to have matches is starting to be a net negative. It's played out already, and if they do it again, I'm not going to give it a pass anymore, even if it does have great matches. So Christopher Daniels comes out, MJF like kind of lets out his insecurities about not being called the best wrestler even if he's the champion. And then, this might sound a bit silly, but if you listen to it, Christopher Daniels, like what he says, is kind of like promotional material for Ring of Honor. I chuckled with how much like commercial this was. And then he uses the Hangman line of kick your dick in the dirt. this was funny and all, but this needed to be between Danielson and MJF. This needed to have like the same emotional level as it did with like the Bloodline. And I think the biggest factor in this storyline is that William Regal is not with the company anymore. I think that would have put it over the top. William Regal was taken away from the feud too early. I think if he stayed until this point, if we actually had like him heat up the feud, since I don't think Tony Khan or Danielson or MJF can right now, unless they surprise me in the last 2 weeks. We'll see what happens, but I think this is like the most we're gonna get. This is the peak of this feud's heat, which is not as high as it should be if we had Regal. Like, I actually thought the hottest that this feud got was when Regal was taken out. And then they just failed to follow that up. I think the series of matches should have happened first, then have Regal taken out, and then have Danielson cut the promos about Regal after that. Like, maybe just ask for like a favor to stay for a couple of more weeks just to like build up this storyline. But yeah, this is the ceiling for this, for what they've invested in it, and I hope the match itself doesn't disappoint. So CD slaps him in the face, MJF retaliates with a kick to the balls, and then Danielson comes out to save CD. And what's the connection between CD and Danielson? Like, honestly, like, aside from, like, of course, being from Ring of Honor, I don't think fans, like, I don't think everyone knows about that. If you wanted this to happen, like, maybe build it up. That's why I said at the start of my review that this should have been William Regal. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself now, but yeah, great segment of the night. Mainly the entrance. So after this is the Ass Boys video promo, and this just sounds like a response to the online criticism instead of like the actual storyline told about them and the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, or FTR. This happens as well at Rampage, and it doesn't help the Guns at all. It just seems like this was booked to get a reaction, and it's very WWE-like. WWE 2016. I'm gonna clarify that, but yeah, this was terrible. A line like, "You could have our dad, but we'll keep the titles," would have been a nice way to do this. And, you know, maybe build up to a story, to Revolution, where the Ass Boys, you know what? You can run with this. The Ass Boys like could like cut this types of promos. They could like address the people, like the criticism online, and then they start realizing that it's not worth it to be champion. That what they really want is their dad back from the Acclaimed, and then we're gonna get this like sappy as fuck reunion segment when they lose the belts to FTR. So after this is Jungle Boy versus Brian Cage. And I wonder if Cage accepted that contract extension since he loses again. Like, despite already proving himself time and time again that he can work against anyone. And this one is especially offensive because I'm okay with him losing to Jungle Boy. I think they should have feuded in the first place and not had that Hook Boy, whatever that team was called, pairing until maybe the next pay-per-view cycle. Like, I think that when Christian was out, have Jungle Boy feud against Brian Cage. And I know that Jungle Boy has thickened up a bit. Admit it, he's thicker now than he was 4 years ago. But he's not there yet. He's also 25 years old. Brian Cage is 38 and he's jacked. So there's this match on Stardom, on the pay-per-view, where this younger wrestler faces off against basically like Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle combined into one woman, in Chihiro Hashimoto. Mirai is this smaller girl, and then they have a match where it's just a struggle. This match had the moves, this match had the story, you can have both, but they also like projected enough emotion for me to get invested in something I just watched on the day. I didn't follow the shows before that, but they told such a good story in the ring. And that's what I think this was missing. I think this should have been a feud. Have Jungle Boy lose the first 2 times, and then have him barely win at the end. And then after his like hard-fought victory, or like it could be like one win each. And after that hard-fought victory, I don't know, maybe like team up with Hook and someone else to face off against the Embassy. after Jungle Boy just like barely wins against Cage. And then we have Christian coming back, which we had tonight. That would have been infinitely better than what we had fucking tonight. So Jungle Boy beat Brian Cage already once, and then he beat him again tonight. And I'm okay with that, as long as it makes sense in the context of a story. Brian Cage is well protected. But this kid, this Jungle Boy, just beat a veteran who's jacked. And it doesn't even look like a struggle. Like, just watch Mirai versus Chihiro Hashimoto. It should have been something like that. Or, you know, if he didn't do that, maybe use someone else in this spot. Have this be like a squash match. Maybe have Willie Mack lose to Jungle Boy. Like, just barely. Have someone else do it and not Brian Cage, who is a Ring of Honor champion, by the way. Trios, but honestly, that division should be merged. It's like Tony Khan's playing Total Extreme Wrestling, and he's forgetting about the rest of his roster. It's just like how I do it when I sign too many people, but this is like real people we're talking about in this situation. They don't sell Jungle Boy's desperation enough until the end, until when he like rolls out of the ring all tired and stuff, but in the match itself, it's just like Brian Cage doing too much offense to Jungle Boy. Like a dynamic like this between big guy and small guy, even if they're like the same height pretty much, should be Jungle Boy has to do more in order to properly hurt Brian Cage, not the other way around. It should take more and more dangerous moves to beat Brian Cage. Darby Allin does this really well, and that's why he's a better pillar at this point. You can get invested so much in Darby Allin matches more than Jungle Boy matches. And Jungle Boy's finisher is a hidden blade. Why? The snare trap was cool enough. Or you can find something else, like maybe a dive to a standing opponent or just a splash. But to copy the finisher of someone who's objectively better, like someone who's more popular than Jungle Boy, who is still like in this feud with Kenny Omega. You're not in different worlds. You're basically in the same universe New Japan and AEW are. But then you give him this finisher. So yeah, I don't like this at all. And then when Christian comes back, I think this was as well as it could have went. Christian comes back, he maces Jungle Boy in the face, and then he reveals that his arm, has been healed. And when the man came out with like that cast, I thought, man, the guy still has that injury. How long is that gonna heal for him? But then he takes it off. He goes Dr. Strangelove, and he beats the shit out of Jungle Boy. Kill switch to the stage, and then I guess we have 2 more weeks to build this up. Again, you should have had this earlier. Like 4 weeks is the minimum it should take to build up a feud. AEW's doing everything wrong. They set things up, but then they don't pay it off in time or well enough. I don't even have a spot in the match for this one. TV undercard. So after this is the announcement of 2 battle royals. One is a normal battle royal, and then the other is Casino. So before Renee is done, the Acclaim show up and then they invoke their rematch clause. This is a betrayal of what AEW stood for. But yeah, they turn it into a 4-way, which is... I'm already not okay with multi-tag team matches, but if the right teams win, it's gonna be good. And if given time, if it's like 15 minutes minimum. That one where Swerve and Our Glory won was pretty good. I think it was against Bucks and Starks and Hobbs. But yeah, they set it up. And then as of now, Aussie Open is in the first one. The Acclaimed are out, and I think they're the most likely to win that one. I think this team here who wins the non-casino battle royal will be the ones to just be like window dressing. They'll be there to elevate the match, but they have 0 chance of winning. Where things get interesting is in the casino battle royal. So everyone thinks FTR are leaving, but this is just like the perfect time to bring them back and get them into the tag division again. Finally give them what they're promised of being the center of that division. Looks like the Bucks are heading there as well, since they're about to lose the trios belts. But yeah, there is love there. There is love between the teams, and I can see making a program with them work. And I think this will be like the last sort of evaluation period before FTR decide if to leave or not. But yeah, I think FTR are going to be champions after this. And then the Acclaimed are going to go on this redemption arc. It's going to be a year long. They're going to have to go through the Lucha Bros, the Young Bucks, Aussie Open, and even the Ass Boys again. They reform their 4-man team. Who knows? The Ass Boys could win the Ring of Honor championships. They could have a 4-man team where all of them are champions. And then the final stage, like next year, this time, the Acclaimed face off against FTR, but then FTR cheat. And then it goes on for even longer, maybe 6 more months, but I don't think Tony can wait that long. So yeah, you're in the prime position to retain FTR, as well as elevate the Acclaimed with a long-term storyline. So yeah, for the love of God, just do it. Free ideas right here. So after this, in the commercial break, we get a Kip Sabian jump scare. And then an Elite Backstage promo with basketballs. So this is like an NBA promotional thing. The NBA and the AEW, I was about to say WWE since The Miz made that half-court shot. But NBA and AEW are on the same program. I think it would have been nice to have someone like Jade Cargill, or just someone who actually like is good at basketball, to show up at the Celebrity All-Star game and just like have them like guard The Miz. Keep The Miz to like 0 points. That'll stir the pot and give AEW some rub and like some notoriety from that. But yeah, instead WWE just like benefited from that so much. While the Elite are here promoting the All-Star game, that betrayed them. And yeah, the promotion was fun. I enjoy the basketballs. I also enjoy that my second favorite team, the Bucks, have the same name as the Young Bucks. But still, Sacramento Kings. They were robbed a championship. But yeah, this had so little substance in it. It was so like... It was such a nothing segment that I think, especially with what happened on Rampage, you could have used for something better to build up to Revolution. You could have had House of Black here. Have them just ruin the Elite's day. Have them bury the All-Star game by popping balls, just kicking ass, if they're not going to send anyone over. But yeah, terrible segment that leads to the most questionable Elite match that I've ever watched. So yeah, after this is Kip Sabian versus Hangman Page. So first of all, why Kip? This is like someone who hasn't been on TV for a long time. He's not been portrayed particularly strong. And the only connective tissue you have in this with Hangman's feud is that they fought Mox. Yeah, him, Butcher and the Blade fought Mox and Claudio and Wheeler. And that's pretty much it. Like, you could have had anyone else here. Or you could have just completely cut this out, just like had a Hangman promo. The in-ring, I think, was solid. Kip was entertaining enough, did his moves, he sold effectively. It was alright. It was actually pretty good. But the problem with this match is just the dynamic between the two. It had no right being this competitive. This is why I want Hangman to have some character development and not be a bitch anymore. It was heading to that direction in small increments. He was starting to stand up to Mox, he was starting to be tough. But here, he was dominated by Kip. It didn't make sense. He had his ass kicked the whole match and then he pulled the win out of his ass. This is your main protagonist. This dude will stay in AEW until the end. And then you do him dirty like this. Like, even if he wins against Mox, this did damage. It's mostly irreparable, but give it enough time and rehab, Page can recover from this. TV undercard, no spots of the match. And after this, BCC come out to like confront Hangman, but then the Dark Order show up and Uno wants to defend his friend. This is all nice and all, but it's all happening too late. We haven't seen the Dark Order since ever. Like, you could have had them on Rampage, or like just in opening matches or the second matches on Dynamite. You could have built these guys up even more. Have us more invested in Evil Uno, who I think is a good wrestler, but we haven't seen enough of him. And now suddenly he's just like talking big to Mox, who I think This is like the Kip situation in reverse. It should be like an execution of Evil Uno after like maybe 11 minutes. Uno gets his shine and then Mox just destroys him. This could help the Dark Order, but it doesn't help this feud. Too little, too late for this one. Like imagine, Moxley versus Evil Uno 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. Like what the fuck? The story is kind of happening in reverse. So after this is JAS, and I'm gonna keep my promise. I'm not gonna talk about this shit. This piece of shit feud ever again. Until it's over. Unless Garcia and Guevara are like free from this shit with Andretti and Starks, I'm not even gonna cover this. So nothing happens in the next couple of minutes, and then we get like another useless promo from the Firm. This should have been on Rampage. Who cares about Hook attacking Stokely Hathaway? This isn't important enough to be in a Dynamite that's 3 weeks away from the pay-per-view. Time management. So after this is the main event, the controversial main event of Ruby versus Brit versus Tony. So with 10 fucking minutes left, they had to pull a match out of their ass. And I think this match was judged unfairly. They judge it solely on that cringy ending and the crowd being tired from such a meh show. But in ring, I thought they were solid. I thought they told a pretty good story about Ruby being pulled at both sides. They had a pretty good three-way match that like involved everyone. But I don't think it was fast enough though. I don't think it was as fast or as hard-hitting enough as the Ric Flair's last match. Yeah, there's this match between Jordynne Grace, Rachel Ellering, and Deonna Purrazzo at Ric Flair's last match. I think it was like below 10 minutes. Rachel Ellering gets injured early on, and then they still have a banger. They always involve each other, but it's faster. The Impact Knockouts division shat all over this match. There was no clear botch, and they had some pretty good spots. I like Brit's in-ring here. She had nice strikes in. And I like the spot where it was like a roll-up to a German suplex. It's like a three-way move. Yeah, it's like a human centipede move where the person at the back rolls this person who's doing a German suplex on another person. And then it ends with like a roll-up. The climax is, I think, what tainted the match. And I think what taints this fucking feud. It's because Saraya and Tony, instead of having like a crisis level event, fucking Saraya and Tony Storm settle for this like stupid gimmick where they like spray L's on people. But instead they spray an L on Tony Storm's ass as she does her awesome hip attack, which got a funny catcall by the way, but awesome hip attack that was maybe the hardest I've seen so far, leading to Ruby winning the match. So Ruby takes advantage, she throws Tony Storm out to Brit, and then she picks up the win. This match is not as bad as people say it is. I think on Cage Match, it's rated lower than I think it should be. If this was put earlier in the card, this would have been alright. This would have been like, what's the rating system there? Like a number rating system? I would have rated this like TV main event pay-per-view undercard, but this like ruined the show, and then that finish. That like corny ass ruining of this feud with the spray paint instead of like gathering up all of the former WWE women. They had that instead, and this like brings down the rating to about like a TV main event. That's nicer than other people would score it. And yeah, that's it for this very negative AEW review. I hope you enjoyed it. And for the love of God, Tony Khan, focus on AEW. Your other sports teams are doing fine. This needs help. Hire Freddie Prinze Jr. That's going to help alleviate some of the pressure. And it's also going to bring goodwill from the fans. So yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr., sign him. Bye-bye.